Hello, audioholics. This is Logan, and today we are going to be doing a tier list, best to worst Black Sabbath albums. With me, we have Tyler,
Sup?
and we are going to be going in chronological order. We have our tier list, as you can see on the screen: S, A, B, C, D. S stands for Super. I'm so sorry to everybody involved.
Super what?
Super
Super
fly.
worms?
Super freak.
She's super freak. She's super freak. She's super freaky.
Ow. All right. So, yeah, we're going to go in chronological order from the first to the last. As you can see, we are counting the Heaven and Hell album.
Yeah, The Devil You Know, which, is an album. We'll talk about this later. I used to love that album, and the more I've listened to the other Sabbath albums, the more it's gone down in my list.
All right. So, we are going to, now there's some we'll disagree with. We will argue about it for about a minute.
Are you
And,
gonna time that?
of course, if we both agree, then
Yeah, we don't have to really talk about it that much.
yeah, we don't have to really talk about it much. We'll probably just end up both simultaneously fanboying about the album if we both like it, or both, reviling it if we don't like it. You see how this works?
It's perfect.
This is a lesson in patronization. Anyway,
all right, do you want to go ahead and on to it?
All right. So let's start with Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath with the title song Black Sabbath.
You gotta love that.
Yeah. You gotta love consistency like that. Much like my favorite band, Dog Police, by the band Dog Police, off the album Dog Police.
Perfect. What if the label was also called Dog Police? That'd be great.
Oh, well, then that would be even better.
It'd just be amazing.
Yes.
They recorded it in a studio called Dog Police in a town called Dog Police.
In the country of Dog Police.
Oh, man. All right, so Black Sabbath's first album. Let me get this right out of the way. This is not a metal album. I know everybody likes to go on about how it's widely considered the first heavy metal album. This is not a metal album. Does it have metal songs in it? Of course. You've got your title track. You have, Behind the Wall of Sleep. You have arguably NIB. But other than that, it's just like straight blues rock. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I would not say it's necessarily a metal album either. Now, I would say maybe you could say proto-metal, like kind of like in the same vein as like Jimi Hendrix or early Led Zeppelin. Or, Blue Cheers, like where they got a lot of their influence from. Things like that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's metal in of itself for the most part.
Yeah.
Again, there are exceptions, but
so
the actual album is actually really, really good. But
yeah,
it has some flaws to it.
Yeah. No, I'll say this out of the way. I don't think there's any song on this album that's particularly bad.
No.
But like, it's the first of its kind, and naturally there's going to be a few hiccups here and there, trying to find their footing, look, Black Sabbath, even if you say this isn't necessarily a metal band, even if you say they aren't a metal band, which they've actually made that argument before, they feel that they don't belong in that genre.
Yeah.
Even if you say that, it was the closest thing to metal at that time.
Well, and the other thing you got to keep in mind is it depends what edition of this album you have, because some of them will have Evil Woman and some of them will have Wicked World.
Yeah. Which, Evil Woman, in my opinion, is not a very good song. I think it might have been released as a single over here, but
I think it was a bonus track over here. I don't know.
Well, I mean, originally, like nowadays you can just easily listen to it on YouTube or um, torrent. I mean, get it through legal measures, and I
Judas
mean, you could
Priest
listen to Evil
approved.
Woman. I wouldn't waste my time. It's not a bad song, but you didn't miss out on much.
Yeah, I'd say Behind the Wall of Sleep is probably the best song on the album, but behind that would be Black Sabbath and Wicked World. Other than that, I can take or leave pretty much everything.
I would say either Behind the Wall of Sleep or NIB.
NIB is a song that everyone but me seems to love. Like, I like it, but
I
it's
like
not.
I like come on, it has a really good riff. It has I mean, yeah, granted it kind of ripped off Sunshine of Your Love, but hey, everyone is ripping everybody off in the music world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everybody has their own influences.
Either way, my main problem with this album is Sabbath have not found their sound yet. Like
Yeah.
they're wearing their influences on their sleeves. They don't really know what they're doing. This is, in fact, if you ever read how this album was recorded, they literally just pretended it was one of their live shows, and then they
Yeah.
went to one of their live shows the next day.
Yeah. So I mean, we can't really fault them for not exactly finding their footing yet. I mean, like no band does right out of the gate. Even the best bands, even bands that have like, you know, really good debut albums, like Van Halen 1. I'm not a huge fan of Van Halen, but Van Halen, the self-titled album, is one of my favorite debut albums of all time. And even that, I would say, arguably is not the most representative of their band because it had a lot of like acoustic stuff and um you know, kind of a little bit more punkish than later Van Halen's. So even in the best of times, you know, you don't find your true sound until maybe like 2 or 3 albums in.
Yeah, so based on all of those things, I would personally rank Black Sabbath right in the middle, straight on B.
Um, I would say,
This is Logan's tier list, by the way. We
yeah,
didn't explain that, but I have two of them pulled up.
yeah. He's pulling the strings. Anyway, I would say it's an A tier album because again, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I
Yeah, but
just
compared to everything that comes after, I just can't really justify it. Because the other albums that come after are just so much better than this one. I can't really justify putting it in the A tier, personally.
um yeah, but like it's well, I guess B tier would be sort of like average. So you know what? Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll move it down to the B tier. Again, there's nothing inherently wrong with the album. It's just it doesn't, you know, it doesn't it suffers from the typical it suffers from the typical teething troubles of every debut album from a band that doesn't have like experience, like not counting something like, you know, Danzig, where everybody in that band had other projects before and kind of already had a grasp of what sells and what doesn't.
Yeah, because
Or
Danzig was in Misfits prior to Solar Grey.
exactly. So like it was, or you know, Motorhead, Lemmy was in Hawkwind. So, you know, they kind of had an idea of how to structure something, create a blueprint, and then run with it.
Yeah. But you know what doesn't fall into the usual pitfalls?
What?
The sophomore album of Black Sabbath,
Oh,
Paranoid.
yeah. So I think so. While we kind of both agree that Black Sabbath was not necessarily the first metal album, I think Paranoid, there is a good argument to be made that that is the first metal album.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely the first album Black Sabbath made that I would just call a straight up heavy metal album.
Yeah. like it definitely has its blues influences, and Sabbath always
Yeah.
did, especially with Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy was a blues singer after all. I like he would. I think that he would consider himself a blues singer, and I think that if you really listen to Black Sabbath,
Or
you
even his
would
solo career.
even his solo career. He just sounded like a blues singer, and that's kind of where heavy metal started from, anyway. But
Yeah.
I think that Paranoid had more of a grasp of what the band would be going forward. And this typically happens. Like sometimes a band will like come straight out of the gate with a really good album, even if it's not necessarily reminiscent of their later sound, and then come out with another album that isn't as good. Again, going back to Van Halen 1, masterpiece album. Van Halen 2 might be a controversial opinion, but I can take or leave. I don't really care that much for Van Halen 2.
Yeah, and frankly,
But
that's a usual pitfall for bands. Like bands
yeah,
open with a great debut, and then their sophomore album
yeah.
just is meh.
And then
You know?
equally as common is the other way around.
Yeah. So
Um,
in Black Sabbath's case, I'd say that the first time around they made a great record, but the second time around they made what could be considered one of the best metal albums of all time, hands
yeah.
down.
Well, I wouldn't even say that necessarily. Well, I mean, I would, but more to the point, they made a great album with Black Sabbath, and then with Paranoid, they made a consistent album. They made,
Yeah.
I mean, barring Planet Caravan, which I don't like.
I don't think anyone really likes Planet Caravan. It's a
Yeah,
guilty pleasure for me, but
even Pantera couldn't save it. Anyway, but like barring Planet Caravan, it's pretty consistent. It's it has like War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man. It doesn't all sound samey, but it all sounds like it could all fit on the same album
yeah, and
in the
personally,
same train of thought.
I think the second half is better. It's heavier. You have Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Fairies
Yeah,
Wear Boots. Like, it's just amazing. Now, the first half, I can kind of take or leave these days because I've just heard every song on the first half 300
yeah,
million times. But the second half is top tier.
yeah. I would say that Hand of Doom is my favorite song on the album.
Because it's top tier for me, I would place Paranoid in the S tier. It's the first album I'm going to do that.
I would put it in the A tier, mainly because there's albums, in my opinion, that while Paranoid is a really good album, there are albums that they would do going forward that are better.
All right.
So like yeah, like going back to your point, like War Pigs, Iron Man. A lot of people say Iron Man is overplayed, overrated. No,
I don't
Iron
think it's
Man.
overrated. It's
I think
overplayed. I wouldn't say
yeah,
overrated.
it's overplayed, but I think that's one of those songs that's overplayed for a reason.
Yeah.
Paranoid is an overrated song.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay. Okay, now we have to argue about it.
All right.
All
I'll
right, so
start. So basically, my reasoning is if you don't know, you can look up the history for Paranoid, the song. Basically, they didn't have enough songs on the album. So they just sat down and cranked it out. Tony Iommi had that riff. Ozzy got the melodies going. Geezer wrote the lyrics to it within like 2 hours. And that was the song. Now, that might scream to you filler track, terrible, but to me, what it screams is improvisation. They basically made the song on the fly, and you can hear that. You can hear the blues improvisation in the solo, which is brilliant. The riff is simple, but it's really effective. The chorus is very melodic and interesting. Ozzy's performance is great. It's definitely an overplayed song, but it's not overplayed because it's overrated. You know what I mean?
okay, so my rebuttal. So all of that, what he said, is true. It basically was more so an
track.
afterthought. Yeah, like pretty much the definition of a filler track. Now that does not necessarily filler tracks can be good. But I think that okay, if we were to ignore all of everything that uh everything that transpired afterwards, Paranoid is one of the band's biggest songs. You can't really take that away from it. But I think that if the album was not called Paranoid and it was instead titled War Pigs, like it was originally supposed to be, I don't think that it would have gotten nearly. I don't think it would have gotten nearly the airplay. It wouldn't have gotten the recognition that it has now.
Well, yeah, that's because the studio was smart and chose that the album art wouldn't reflect the name, because Paranoid just immediately screamed to the studio, radio rock, we can get plays. We can make money from this song. Because I don't know if you are aware of this, but actually at the last minute, it was the studio that changed the title from More Pigs to Paranoid, and the album art never changed with it. So that's why it doesn't fit.
I guess that's a point, but I would say, like, Paranoid, it, like you basically said, it was recorded, well, the entire album was recorded, I think, in, what, a week or a month or, like, a few weeks.
Few days.
A few days, even. And Paranoid was recorded just in a few hours, and it kind of sounds like it.
But see, the thing that, like, you got to remember is the entire album was basically just birthed from improvisation during live shows. Every single song, War Pigs, and they just did the same thing with Paranoid, the song. So it's no different from the rest of the album.
Yeah, but like War Pigs, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots, all of these songs, even though they were improvisation, there was still thought. There was still kind of a grace period because they were touring before they made the album, so they had some of these ideas fresh in their mind. Paranoid screams to me, okay, we have a little bit of room left on the album. The studio wants a hit. Let's quickly crap something out. And that's kind of what Paranoid... Now, I'm not saying Paranoid is a bad song. I don't think anybody would say that. I just think that it is not as good as people give it credit for. It sounds kind of too... It sounds rushed in a way that the other songs do not sound rushed. And again, like, they basically had to be fair, they had to come up with an idea, come up with a riff, come up with a drum beat, come up with a bass line, come up with vocals, come up with a structure in just a few hours. So, given all of that, the song is honestly a stroke of genius. However, most people who do not have that context and are just listening to the song alongside every other song on the album, apart from Planet Caravan, which even that is, I think, more fleshed out than Paranoid. At least it has more of a musical identity behind it. I think that Paranoid is the least inspired song on the album. And I think that I think that of all the songs, it just feels the most rushed and phoned in.
Yeah, I guess I can't necessarily disagree with that, but like you said, that doesn't make it a bad song. It's actually a very good song, and that's
it's
why
a good song, but it's
okay.
So it's a good song, but it's. Would you say that it deserves the hype that the casual metal goer gives it?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I would say it does.
Because I think most people in or out of the metal community do not have that same context that we have. Because they're
I
just
get
casual
that,
listeners.
but like when growing up, Paranoid gripped me the same way Master of Puppets gripped me, the same way like Symphony of Destruction gripped me, you know? So that's gotta be the same experience for a lot of people. That's why it's played as much as it is. And to
So,
me, that's what makes the quality of a song. Does it speak to people?
well, I mean, Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit speaks to people. Does that make it a good song? Like, you can't just.
No, but Break Stuff isn't played on the radio anymore. It hasn't stood the test of time. Paranoid's been played consistently on the radio for over 40 years.
Fair point. All right, so I mean, like, again, I don't want to say it's a bad song. I just think it's overrated.
Well, I guess that's a fine opinion to have. All right, I think we should move on to Master
Yeah.
of Reality now, which is where we're going to have a lot of arguments.
I mean, I think we both love the album. I think it's. So I'd say the best part about Master of Reality is just that it is not only a good album, but probably the best mixed album of all time.
Definitely one of the best.
And because I can't think of. Oh, well, you're already preemptively putting it in the S rating. I doesn't screw around, does he?
No, this one's really simple for me. This
Yeah.
is straight up one of my favorite albums of all time. I love every single second of it, and I've heard it hundreds of times.
Okay,
It's
so
one
we
of the
are going to
heaviest-
disagree.
One of the heaviest albums that has ever been released. It's insane to me that, you know, we have bands like Cannibal Corpse, we have bands like Killswitch Engage, and they can't even come within 10 football fields of just how heavy this album sounds. And it's been how long since it came out? People can't
Yeah.
even come close to it.
So I don't know who was twiddling the knobs with this album, but he needs to be. But like, or if he's still alive, or if he's done anything else, but if he's still alive, he needs to be doing more, because nobody has really had this idea before, and not a whole lot of people that I have ever heard have really had this idea since. Make the bass the standout in the mix. It actually sounds more heavy that way. It has a fairly clean guitar, a bass that is actually front and center in the mix, making it more heavy.
I don't know. I think the guitar tone on this album is probably the most distorted of any Sabbath album. It's very, very distorted. I mean, it's an Iommi tone, so like obviously something like Killswitch Engage is more distorted than this album. But Tony Iommi's tone in this album is more distorted than most Sabbath albums, if not all of them.
I would say it was more distorted in Paranoid, and would become more distorted in Volume 4, and especially like going into the Dio years. That was like a lot more distorted as well. So I have the track listing. Sweet Leaf.
Foundation of stoner doom. Like,
Is that a good thing though?
I mean, yeah, we got High on Fire, Sleep, I Hate God,
guess.
like all kinds of amazing bands that have been born from stoner doom.
Like,
I mean,
Sweet
it's
Leaf.
not just stoner doom, but stoner rock also.
Yeah.
That this song not only created but was a pioneer of. After this song, we had so many bands create albums that would become classics.
So I mean, yeah, I guess Sweet Leaf isn't that maybe not my personal favorite, but it's still a really good song. And yeah, he's right that it is very he's right that it is very influential.
After Forever is one of the best Sabbath songs of all time. It has a great riff.
Embryo is Embryo.
It's just a tiny instrumental.
Yeah. Children of the Grave, obviously good.
I would say, like, Ozzy considers Children of the Grave to be the best song Sabbath ever wrote. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's
I could
definitely in my top 5.
I don't know if I would necessarily. I mean, because it's so incredibly difficult to pick the best Sabbath song, right? But
Yeah.
like, I would at least not refute that argument. I would respect that opinion.
Yeah, I used to say the same thing you say about the song Paranoid about this song. I used to say it's overplayed, it's simple, it's rushed. But if you go back and listen to it,
It's really
it's
complex.
it is, and it's incredible. Especially the middle section where it gets really dark and really heavy and
Yeah, yeah,
atmospheric.
right.
Like,
Like they don't even play that part in like a lot of the live shows. Like
it's
it's
like the
kind of
best
like
part of the song.
yeah, it's kind of like the ending part of Symptom of the Universe where it has like that little acoustic bit. Like they don't play that in the live shows, and maybe that's for the best, but it's still really good to hear in the studio.
You know, that reminds me, this is a bit off topic, a band called Gojira, which anyone who's into the modern metal scene will be very familiar with. They have a song called Flying Whales. And the song in the album opens with like over 2 minutes of this like atmospheric, not acoustic, it is an electric riff, but
Yeah.
it's a very clean, simple riff, and it's atmospheric, and it has whale sounds going on in the background and various other stereo things you can hear. They usually skip right to the heavy section of the song. But if you keep that like slow atmospheric section first and then you go into the heavy section, it's so much more impactful.
Yeah.
And I think that's something a lot of bands do live is they take away parts of the songs in the albums that made it impactful and then it kind of ruins it. And to me, Sabbath has done that a little bit with songs like Children of the Grave and yeah, Symptom of the Universe a lot too.
So one thing I will say about Children of the Grave, the Ian Gillan version when he sang it live, I think was better than Ozzy's version.
I mean, I'm no Ozzy fanboy. Like, I will fully admit Ozzy is a terrible singer, but frankly, I've never understood the appeal of Ian Gillan. I've always thought he had a bad voice. He's not that amazing a singer. Ozzy outclasses him in every way, in my book.
I would generally agree, but I would generally agree, but I think that song he has like kind of the falsetto and the roaring vocals. I think it works a little bit. Maybe you haven't heard the Ian Gillan live version. Like they toured it for Born Again, which we'll get to later.
You did
But
show me that bootleg before, yeah.
yeah, it works. But needless to say, I think it sounds kind of better. But either way, it's a great song. Nobody is going to take that away from it.
Yeah, no. And then we
Um,
have Orchid, which is actually one of my favorite like little instrumental albums, little
yeah,
instrumental sections of an album
yeah,
because it implements like some different instruments. If you didn't know, Tony Iommi is actually a pretty skilled multi-instrumentalist. He can play piano, he can play flute. And it kind of shows off some of his flair in Solitude, which is a later song, but this is a nice little intro track to Lord of the World, or Lord of This World, I mean, which is another one of my favorite Sabbath songs. Very
okay.
catchy riff.
Um, what do we have? Lord of the World, obviously a good song.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd say
amazing
maybe
song.
the most forgettable song on the album, in my opinion, but it's a good song
More Than
nonetheless.
Solitude?
Solitude should not even be on the album. Okay, let's just go to Solitude because that's the most divisive one. Solitude should not be on the album. It's like basically the Planet Caravan of Paranoid, but worse.
I'd say it's better because it's like, okay, for one, it's very atmospheric, which is good because it leads into maybe the heaviest song Sabbath ever wrote. And two, it does display Tony Iommi's multi-instrumentalist skill, which is really, really cool to hear. You can hear him play the flute, the piano, you can hear him play all kinds of stuff in this song. Ozzy gets to have his voice effects, which makes the melodies that he sings a little bit more memorable in my book. It's just a nice little track. I mean, is it amazing? No. but it's a nice little break from the constant like heaviness of this album, and it prepares you for Into the Void in my book. So I feel like it's an important track, but it's not something I would ever look out for outside of the album.
I'm going to refute that with one sentence. Planet Caravan did all of that better.
Did it though? Did it?
Yeah, like it was more instrumental. It was more atmospheric. It had more effects. The effects kind of made more sense.
Did Planet Caravan have sleigh bells?
No, but it did have like bongos not bongos. You know what I mean? Like the Chinese drums.
You're cracking up.
Whatever.
Dude, something's happening with your audio.
Well, I'm the one making the recording, so it'll be fine. Anyway.
Yeah, but I had no idea what you just said.
Oh. No, I was saying that Planet Caravan has like I can't remember what that type of drum is. Like, I think they're conga drums.
Congas, yeah.
Yeah.
But all it has is congas and a flute. Like, there's sleigh bells, a flute. There's piano. Like, Solitude is just like cool.
I just don't like that style. Like, Solitude, to me, I think it's more so what it represents. It kind of represents the end of that kind of hippie era backwash that Sabbath had. And I think that's a good thing. And I kind of like that. I think the reason that it's bad is that it honestly represents something good. It's sort of like disco. Like, disco is bad, but Disco Demolition, which was also a bad thing, represented something good, the end of disco. So I think it's bad because it represented something good, and that was kind of the end, not only of Sabbath, but generally kind of the end of the hippie backwash. Like, he had like Doobie Brothers and things like that. But I think that all kind of started, like, after 1971, 1972 is about the time that the 70s sort of started to form its own identity. And I think that Solitude does not have an identity that is modern. It was obsolete when it came out, basically.
Either way, I think we can agree to disagree on that one. But
yeah. So
I'm still on to Into the Void.
Obviously a great song.
Again, top 5 favorite Sabbath songs.
Yeah.
This album is just phenomenal. Like, you'll see towards the end of this list, it'll stay at the top of mine.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an S rating as well.
Better than Paranoid.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, personally, I think this is by far
the
best.
Never mind.
Best of the best Sabbath. If you want to get into Sabbath, this is one of the albums you start with. This is one of the albums that convinces you to be a fan, you know?
Now, moving on to the next album, which is actually the best Ozzy Sabbath album.
Volume 4.
Okay, so get ready to make the entire metal community hate you, Tyler.
So, like, for the first, 3/4 of my Sabbath existence, I never listened to this album more than once because I hated it. And, like, a few months ago, was it that long? Something like that. It was, like, the 50th anniversary of the original debut album, Black Sabbath. We listened to the entire discography again, and I still hated it. But I've listened to it, like, 3 times since then, and I still hated it every time. Last week, I heard Cornucopia just by chance on a Black Sabbath radio I was listening to, and I just fell in love with it. It just clicked with me. And this entire album, by extension, just clicked with me, and I've been listening to it nonstop. I've probably heard it 4 or 5 times within the past few days.
Right. So I'm not going to track by track every album, but
yeah,
we aren't going to track by track it. But needless to say, I would say every single track on this album is good except maybe FX.
Well, FX is a transition track. It doesn't
Yeah,
really count.
yeah. So if we're not counting transitional tracks, which even if we were, Laguna Sunrise is still a really good song. Probably the best transitional track, in my opinion.
I've always found it boring.
I think it kind of has the. I think it kind of evolves on the complexity of something like Planet Caravan and Solitude, and I think it kind of reaches its natural conclusion on Laguna Sunrise. And then later transition pieces, I think, are a little bit too repetitive, go on too long, and just aren't just drop the needle later on in the album. Just skip them for the most part. Like Fluff, I don't like that.
Fluff.
The only exception to that is Super Czar.
Yeah.
Which actually, now that I think about it, is my favorite transition.
Same.
So
yeah, I mean, the only real criticisms I have of this album are changes. Like, it's obviously a so bad and good kind of song.
I mean, it feels out of place, yeah. It's a guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah, same.
It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I'm not going to say it's like a good song, especially the version he did years later with his daughter.
That's so bad.
That was
At least
really
he
bad.
Didn't get Yoko Ono up there.
Oh, God.
That was the fakest laugh I've ever heard in my life. Well, as long as we're criticizing, Wheels of Confusion's riff is also really repetitive, and I'm not really a fan of it.
I mean, it's Doom. Of course the riffs are repetitive. What do you want?
Okay, but, like, it's one note. It's like, da, 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 it's something like that. It's just stupid. I mean, the song is good, but that riff is just meh, in my opinion. It's the only riff on the album where I'll say it's just kind of meh.
You know, I never really thought about that, but, I mean, I guess I kind of have to agree with you. Like, I love the song, too.
Yeah.
But I kind of have to agree that, yeah, it's probably not a bad riff, but one of the most repetitive in their catalog.
Yeah. It used to, like, when I hated this album, this song was, like, a big reason why. It goes on for, like, 8 minutes, and it's just so fucking repetitive. It pisses me off. Or I should say it pissed me off. I've grown to like it, but other than that, Tomorrow's Dream, great.
Best song.
Utopia, you
know. So, yeah, I would say the 3 best Sabbath, I would say, like, 3 of the songs on this album are in my top 5 Sabbath, at least Ozzy Sabbath songs of all time.
So I think where I would rank this is going to be a bit different from where you would rank this. Now, this is going to be in my S category. I don't know where you're going to put it, but that's where I'm going to put it. Oh, you're going to do S too?
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised you did that.
I was thinking you were going to put it in A above Sabotage, or above Paranoid, my bad.
I would say, yeah, it's, like I said, it's my favorite Ozzy Sabbath album of all time.
Oh, is it? So you think it's better than Masters of Reality? Okay.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Right. Okay, so I would disagree that it's the best Sabbath or Ozzy Sabbath album. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's better than most of the Ozzy Sabbath albums. But we'll get to that. Next, we have my absolute favorite Sabbath album. No argument in my mind. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I love this album. I love it so much. Every single track, every single one is just 10 out of 10.
So I am going to actually say I kind of had the reverse effect of Tyler with Sabbath Volume 4. I used to love the album. I used to love Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and I still like it. But over the years, I've kind of grown to like it less, and mostly it has to do with the guitar tone.
Yeah, okay. I will just get this out of the way. Whilst some of the songs have extremely heavy moments, like the end of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, basically the entire song, Killing Yourself to Live, and Sabra Cadabra, this album is much less heavy than Volume 4, than Master of Reality. It's more bluesy, but I think that's to its benefit.
Not even, not even, not even. It's not even that it's less heavy. It's that the guitar tone is less heavy. Like if you listen to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath
Yeah,
live,
that's what I meant. It's more of a
yeah,
blues
yeah.
tone.
So if you listen to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath live, it sounds way, way better. Every single song sounds better live than in the studio.
I
So
do I do love the tone, but I have to agree that the songs might have sounded a little bit better if it had the Master of Reality tone. The
yeah,
reason why it's my
or
favorite
or
Sabbath
even the
album,
Sabbath Volume 4 tone. That would be really good too.
oh yeah. Well, the reason why it's my favorite Sabbath album is just the quality of the songs. Just it's another level from any other Sabbath album.
I would say for the first half, you're right. So, like for example,
Uh,
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, amazing song. A National Acrobat, amazing, amazing song.
yeah.
Sabra Cadabra, amazing song. Even Metallica couldn't screw it up, and that was when they were, knee deep in drugs, alcohol, and selling the hell out. Um, Killing Yourself to Live, okay. Who Are You? Okay.
Oh
Spiritual
come on.
Acrobat, okay.
Who Are You is like dark synth metal. It's awesome.
I admire
You
them.
know the secret.
I would say I would say that I
Spiral Architect
admired.
is underrated as hell.
Yeah, I don't really like the second half. Like if I listen to it on vinyl, I will listen to the first side and then put it back in the sleeve and put it back on my shelf. I think that the second half is more experimental, and I applaud them for trying that. And I think by all accounts they succeeded.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I would just not say it's top shelf Sabbath. So with
Hard
Masters,
disagree, but it's your opinion.
yeah. Um,
Where
so
would you put it on the list?
A, I would say put
Above
it.
Paranoid?
I would say yes, but
Okay.
I would
Thought
say
I
it's
would fight
about
you on
tied.
that.
I would say it's about tied with Paranoid, but for all intents and purposes, let's just put it above it. So before we move on, though, like, so why do you like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath? Why is it your favorite album?
I mean, like I said, it's just the quality of songwriting. You have Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, which is potentially my favorite Sabbath song. I mean, it's at least in my top three. You got a National Acrobat, which is just amazing. Fluff, which I know you don't like, but it's probably my favorite little acoustic piece, other than you know, or I meant not acoustic piece, but transition piece, other than Superstar. And then you have Sabracadabra, which has one of the heaviest Iommi riffs
Yeah.
ever of all time. It's a great song also. Killing Yourself to Live, amazing. Who Are You, I listen to. Confession time, that may be the song I listen to the most on this album. I don't know why I love it so much, but that like synth thing that they do in that song is just so pleasing to my ears. Looking for
Yeah.
Today is the only song I can really see people calling bad, but I think it's changes done right. It's a song that is not really didn't really fit on volume 4, but it fits here. And then Spiral Architect is probably the single most underrated Sabbath song that they have ever put out. It's just amazing.
I would say that actually, now that I think about it, not National Acrobat, Killing Yourself to Live. I actually have to backtrack on that one. Killing Yourself to Live is actually a good song. Just kind of,
It's
again,
great.
ruined by the subpar guitar tone.
Yeah, you hate the guitar tone, but I think the guitar tone works perfectly for every song on this album except for Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Because Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is so heavy, especially at the second half, it feels weird with the guitar tone that they chose on the album. And that's the only flaw I can pick with it. Because it works in every other song. Because every
I
other
don't
song is
think.
more bluesy.
I think every other song is more heavy. I think every song, especially Sabra Cadabra. So I think Sabra Cadabra, and if you need proof of that, listen to Metallica's version of Sabra Cadabra. It's better.
Honestly, I think it kind of sucks.
I think it's better because it's heavier. Now, like Metallica has always had like kind of questionable covers. Like I don't love all of the Garage Incorporated album, but that one is the one that I think kind of stands out. That and Stone Cold Crazy.
We will probably get around to Blue Oyster Cult eventually, but fucking the
Yeah.
cover they did of Astronomy makes me want to stab my eyes out and cut off my ears and shove my nose in a fucking wood chipper. Like, it's so bad. Just, there are some things you shouldn't touch, Metallica, and that is one.
Best Metallica song of all time, Astronomy.
Ugh.
I'm kidding.
Also, Tuesday's Gone was a bad cover.
Really thank God somebody agrees with me on that. It just sounds like drunk, which, to be fair, they probably were.
Yeah.
All right, so move on to Sabotage.
All right. So Sabotage is an album that I've been kind of mixed on pretty much my entire life listening to Sabbath because I love most of the songs on this album, but there's a few of them I really hate. Like Am I Going Insane Radio, just I will skip it even today I hate that song. Every time I hear it I skip it.
All
the
right.
Thrill of It All is another one of those songs I really
did I ever oh yeah, I did rank Masters of Reality. Or yeah. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. All right, go on, sorry.
Yeah, so it's just I'm really mixed on this album because there are so many songs that I like, but so many I really just don't. In fact, I think you'll be really surprised where I put this on my list compared to the last time we talked about this.
Right. So, my opinion on you might as well just rank it a while. On your end anyway. Okay. My opinion on Sabotage is just a tiny bit below Volume 4. So second best Sabbath album of all time. Even Am I Going Insane? I think it's experimentation. It follows the logical conclusion of the synth experimentation and the prog metal experimentation that Sabbath was doing.
Yes, it is more proggy.
Yeah. I think that's where the experimentation reached its final conclusion. And I think that it is I think that Am I Going Insane is kind of the logical conclusion of the synth experimentation. It's maybe not the best song on the album, but I still think it is top shelf Sabbath material. But I mean, Hole in the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, Megalomania is one of my favorites of all time. The Writ is another really good song.
Yeah, but I can just leave the rest of the album and not listen to any of it ever again.
Like even Superzar, like we both agreed.
Yeah, I mean it's the best transition song, but do you ever listen to transition songs just because? Because I don't.
I don't, but like but like I'm saying like everything on the album is perfect. Even The Thrill of It All, which is maybe the worst. I can't even say worse because that implies that it's bad. The least best song on the album is still really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say any of these songs are bad, but just speaking to the quality of most Sabbath albums, I don't think it's up to snuff.
I would say that every single thing on this album is A shelf material. So
Except
I
for Am
would
I Going Insane? I hate that song.
even I would say it's A shelf material because it, like I said, it's experimental done right.
It just annoys me. But yeah, I put Sabotage below every single other Ozzy album that we've ranked so far, except the debut. I think it is slightly
Yeah.
better than the debut due to mostly megalomania. To
Yeah.
be honest,
I don't know if you ranked mine yet, but I would
did.
put it okay. S rating. Yeah, good.
All right, do we want to go on to Technical Ecstasy now, or do you want to keep talking about Sabotage?
As much as I would love to keep talking about Sabotage, we must.
All right, so
we must eat our vegetables at some point.
This is an album that everyone hates, and I'm going to get some haters here, but it's not as bad as everyone says it is, and it's going in C tier, not D tier.
Okay, let me just take a quick look at the track listing.
None of these songs are particularly memorable as far as Sabbath goes, except for Dirty Woman and maybe Gypsy, but it's not bad. This is top tier blues rock. It may not.
Yeah,
be
I wouldn't.
Sabbath,
I would not say it's like the worst material of all time.
No, She's Gone and It's All Right are borderline dog shit, but the rest of the album,
I don't know. I would say that it is the best worst Sabbath album. So I would give it a D rating, but it would probably be the best song in that category.
All right. You want to move on to the next one then? We don't really have to talk about that one much.
Yeah. Moving swiftly along, Never Say Die. Below Technical Ecstasy. Not necessarily a bad album, though. Okay, it is a bad album, but it's a bad album with some class.
Yeah, I would put Never Say Die in D category. This is the first one we've come across that I actually would probably not willingly listen to again. There's only one song on this album that I actually think is good. The rest of it is kind of just, I think Ozzy was done with Black Sabbath before they even started writing for this album. And if you read into the history, that's pretty much proven. Tony Iommi was just phoning it in for most of this album, and the rest of the band was too. Nobody wanted to do this album, but they just did it anyways because. And you can tell that's how the music sounds. Like nobody wants to do it. And frankly, I don't want to listen to it either. So.
Okay. So I would say this. There's three good songs, one really good song, and the rest is awful.
I mean, even Ozzy hates this album. This is the one Sabbath album that he says is just absolutely terrible.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, there's three good songs and one really good song, and the rest is terrible. Air Dance, Junior's Eyes, and Never Say Die, good songs. Not A shelf material, maybe not even B shelf material, but at least average. Johnny Blade, really good song. Really good song. Everything else is borderline unlistenable.
A Hard Road is probably the most laughable song that I've ever heard.
What was the one? Hold on, I have to look at the track listing. What was the last one where Bill Ward sang it?
That was Swinging the Chain.
That was.
It was so bad.
That was can you even hate it? They clearly didn't. It's one of those albums where they clearly didn't care while making it, and there's a valid reason for that because they didn't care while making it because they were in turmoil.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like a band in turmoil, and it's like the Sabbath version of Mardi Gras, but maybe not quite that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad, but it's not unlistenable. It's not boring, is what I should say. Some of the other albums we're going to talk about after this are so boring, I would avoid them entirely. But I could see myself listening to this album again if I was drunk with a few friends just to shit on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's at least entertaining in that regard. So, still a hard D. But at least
It's a hard
it's
D, is it?
yes, shut up. But it at least does kind of have a few good songs and at least some good fodder for when you're out drinking with your friends.
Pretty much. All right, let's move on to Heaven and Hell.
My favorite Sabbath album of all time.
Whoa.
Or no, I'm wrong. Still in the S class.
Oh, wait. I think I messed up our shit. Yeah, I messed
Oh
it up.
no.
Give me a sec.
Oh snow.
Oh, wait.
Never Say Die. Come on. Good day, Junior. Size.
Give me a second. Would you say Technical Ecstasy is worse than Never Say Die?
Yes. Or no.
Okay.
No, better.
Better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Heaven and Hell, S
I think
class.
this is right. So Heaven and Hell for you is slightly worse than Volume 4? Or slightly
I
worse
would
than
say
Sabotage?
it is slightly worse than Sabotage, but better than Masters of Reality.
So my basic opinion of Heaven and Hell is they had some really bad albums with Ozzy. Once Ozzy was fired from the band and they got Dio in, they were revitalized creatively. This is not the same Sabbath that we were listening to prior to this. This is not slow, heavy, doomy Sabbath from Volume 4 and Sabotage and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. This is almost borderline speed metal. And to some extent, that's why I didn't like it for a long time. But recently, I've gotten a little bit more lenient with speed metal Sabbath. I still don't love it, but it's still better than Paranoid in my mind. I would listen to it more than Paranoid. I know I sounded a little negative there, but
Yeah. So it's a really good album.
it's really good. I just don't really love the speed metal route, and all the songs that I love on this album are more of the doomy ones, like Children
would
of the Sea and Heaven and Hell.
I would say I'm the opposite. I always loved Sabbath's speed metal side, and we'll see more of that when we get to the next album. But like Neon Nights, classic. Children of the Sea, really good. Heaven and Hell, I'm gonna have to make a controversial statement. I never really liked it, the title track, because I think it goes on too long, and I think it goes on too long. It doesn't really build up to a whole lot, and I would like it if it was like maybe a little bit shorter, like cut the last 2 minutes or so.
So just real quick, I feel like I should expand upon what I was saying earlier. I don't think speed metal Sabbath is bad. I think that they didn't know how to do speed metal Sabbath in this album. So they were kind of still fledglings, like with the debut album in doom metal.
Yeah.
And they will refine it in the next album, which we might as well just talk about that now. Mob Rules is right above Heaven and Hell in my mind for Sabbath ranking. It's still S tier. It's better because it's everything Heaven and Hell is, but done 10 times better.
Well, there's like not a whole lot of doom metal though on that one, except like the last song, I think.
Sign of the Southern Cross got kind of doomy at parts.
Oh, that's a good point.
It was really good though, but like it's not even about the doomy stuff. It's just so good. It's the songwriting quality is so good. The riffs are so good. The vocals are so good that I kind of just lost my hate boner for the speed metal Sabbath when this album came around, and I just sort of fell into line, and I just love it.
All right, so for me, best Sabbath album of all time, better than Volume 4.
Okay.
And also, you put Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy in the wrong order.
No, you said Never Say Die was better than Technical Ecstasy.
No, I didn't.
I asked you. I said, do you think Never Say Die is better than Technical Ecstasy?
Okay, well, I misunderstood.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but every single song. I think that it is quite literally Sabbath's only perfect album. Every album except for like a few, except for like the bottom two, Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy, got super, super close to perfection. They're always like lacking that little something. For Paranoid, it was Planet Caravan. For Masters of Reality, it was Solitude. For Volume 4, it was mostly FX. For Sabbath, Bloody
like
Sabbath,
tiny little.
yeah, I mean, it's like a tiny little blemish, but it's
Nitpicking.
still a blemish nonetheless. I
would say there's no such thing as a perfect Sabbath album. I think all of them have flaws, but the flaws are kind of what make them. It makes their character. So the flaws in Mob Rules are mostly E5150 and, in my opinion, Country Girl.
I love Country Girl, but I love Country Girl.
Good. It's good, but like at that point in the album is when I'm starting to like find the riffs a little samey.
I don't know. I think it's a really good riff, but
I'm nitpicking.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not a perfect album.
Yeah, I guess I could agree with you about the instrumental. Not even that it's bad, it just kind of goes on a little bit too long. But I mean,
exactly.
It builds up to Mob Rules. Can it really be that bad?
Mob Rules is... No, Sign of the Southern Cross is the best song on the album, but Mob Rules is probably second place. Turn Up the Night.
I could not even.
This album is just so good, and
I could
like
not
I said,
even begin to figure that out.
This is another
Voodoo,
Sabbath
maybe?
album that I used to hate, like because I hated speed metal Sabbath, and so all of this album was just not up my alley. But eventually, I just fell into line. So it's hard to rank these songs because they're all just so good. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it.
I would say if I had to pick a best song, Voodoo maybe.
Voodoo's really good. I don't know if I'd say it's the best song, but it's a fair pick.
Yeah. Born Again, this is going to be...
oh, okay. Yeah, this is one we're going to debate.
First of all, you can insult me, you can insult him, you can insult my friends, my family, my possessions. You cannot insult Demon Baby. Demon Baby is my religion, and if you insult him, you are insulting my Lord and Savior, and you will die, and you will not go to Valhalla. Now,
Demon Baby looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint.
how do I remove him from the call?
Literally has painted like tiny little Microsoft Paint edits on its fingers.
But it's Demon Baby! Look. The coolest things, the best album covers involve babies doing cool things. So that is
Nevermore
Born
sucked.
Again. Huh?
Nevermore sucked.
What's that?
I know you were gonna say Nevermind.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. But
I said Nevermore. I meant Nevermind.
Yeah, I wasn't even gonna say that, but that's a good one too. But like the album cover. I'm just talking about the album cover, but
yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah,
I was just gonna say Van Halen 1984. That album was badass.
Irregardless of the cover art, though, this album is unbearable.
It is really. So I would give it a B rating. I would put
Holy
it.
Shit.
I would.
Don't say above debut. Come on.
I'm gonna have to say above debut.
Oh, how?
Trashed is really good. Disturbing the Priest is really good.
The first 10 seconds is good.
Zero to Hero. Zero to Hero is like one of my favorite songs.
It has an amazing riff, but that's all it has going for it.
Digital Bitch is a really fucking good song.
No.
It is a really good song. Come on. Okay. So why do you not like the song? First of all, why do you not like the album?
All right. So my biggest problem with this album is Ian Gillan. The instrumentals in this album, amazing. Okay, it's Tony Iommi. It's Butler. I think Butler was on this album. Yeah, he was. I think Ward was also on this album. Yeah, it was everybody but Ozzy, who was
No,
still here. This was the last album with Ward.
Was Jeff Nichols on this
No,
album or not?
no, no. I
Okay.
just looked at the personnel. It is the classic Sabbath lineup, except for Ozzy.
Okay.
And the problem is that Ian Gillan sucks. He's so bad. He is not a good singer. Okay, and I've never understood the appeal of him. We talked about this earlier, but he's worse in this album because he sounds like he's recording vocals for a Deep Purple album or some other album, and they just slapped it on top of some Sabbath jams and called it some songs. It just sounds unlistenable to me. Like, it doesn't sound like the two things were meant to be together. The vocals and the instrumentals, they don't sound the same. And also, while I'm on the subject, the mixing is dog shit. It's so bad that you can't even appreciate the instrumentals. The production is terrible and the mixing is terrible. The first time I listened to this album, I was shocked at how bad it was. And since then, I've only hated it more and more with every listen. Last time I turned it off halfway through because I couldn't listen to it.
All right. So first of all, let's start with what I agree with. The mixing is terrible.
Yes.
It's
so bad.
Now, to be fair.
Who mixed it?
No. Well, now, to be fair, though, I don't think this album has been remastered since 2008. So why that is relevant is I don't know if it's necessarily if it always was mixed bad or if it was just the remaster was mixed bad as kind of a loudness wars thing. This is
Robin Black.
Okay. Well, this is one of the few Black Sabbath albums I don't own on vinyl.
For good reason.
Well, I would love to. I've just never come across a cheap copy. But I don't know if the original version is mixed better. But I think if any Sabbath album is in need of a remaster, I would say this and then maybe Eternal Idol. Going on to your point about Ian Gillan's vocals. Now, I would normally agree, but I think that so I'm not the biggest fan of Deep Purple. I like them. In Rock is a really good album.
I don't like Deep Purple.
And also Machine Head, which, has Highway Star, Smoke on the Water. Smoke on the Water, I think, is very overrated, but Highway Star more than makes up for it.
Deep Purple's just never clicked with me. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not even saying that, they're not amazing. I just don't really they're not my cup of tea.
So, I think that Ian Gillan, I don't think he was trying to sing like Deep Purple. I think he was trying to
No, I don't think he was trying to sing like Deep Purple. I said it sounded like he was singing for a Deep Purple album. I was just trying to say he sounded like he was singing for a different album.
Anyway, I think that Deep Purple's vocals are the darkest of any of the other singers. Now, they're all dark. Every single vocalist except maybe Tony Martin. He's not so much dark, but he has his own merits and attributes. That being said, though, and also maybe Glenn Hughes. But, I'm sorry, not Glenn Hughes. Who did, I can't remember.
Who did what? Seventh Star? That was Glenn Hughes.
Huh?
Seventh Star was Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes, but, who did... oh, no, I'm thinking of Ray Gillan. He's the one who, never mind. But, Glenn Hughes and Tony Martin were a different sound. but not necessarily dark, but again, have their own attributes. Now, Ian Gillan, I'd say, isn't only dark, it's like borderline satanic. Like, like
No.
when I first heard Disturbing the Priest, it made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck because
Yeah, like the first 10 seconds are good, but
it is so dark and eerie and just like, for lack of a better term, spooky. Like, it is. Now, I'm not going to say the album is perfect.
I would hope not.
I'm not going to say the album's perfect, but for a while, I will say this. For a while, it was one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums. Over time, I've seen The Reason, and it's not as good as I remember it, but it is still a very good album. And part of the reason I don't like it, actually, the most of the reason I don't like it, is because of the mixing. It's just mixed like garbage. But Ian Gillan is I'm not going to say he's a good vocalist, but he's a good metal vocalist.
Oh, excuse me. I don't agree that he's a good metal vocalist. I don't agree he's creepy. He's laughable. The first time I heard him sing in Trashed, I think it's the opening track, I laughed.
So we are definitely going to disagree. So Seventh Star. This is going to be a hard one. Is that what we're on now? Yeah. This is going to be a hard one for me.
So Seventh Star is an album that I'm going to put in B tier because it's middle of the road for me. It's a really good album, but it's not a very good Sabbath album.
I'm going to... I don't know whether to put it in low B or high C. Because, like, I agree with you 100%. It's a good Sabbath album, but it has, like, the second side of it. Like, it's such a bipolar album because the first half is really, really good. Even the ballad, Strangest to Love, I love that.
Really? I thought it was like a super consistent album.
But like the second half where it starts to get more bluesy, and like not even okay, so like Seven Stars really good. Danger Zone is a really good song. That might actually be on the second half. Heart Like a Wheel, I'm not too fond of. Angry Heart and In Memory. So it has a bunch of really good songs, kind of meh transition pieces, and the last three songs I don't even remember listening to. So you know what? I am going to have to put it in the low B category, below Sabbath's debut.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it's mostly just because I don't think it really was a good Sabbath album. It's a phenomenal blues album. If you're into blues rock and you don't really like Sabbath too much, this is the album for you, bucko.
Yeah.
Because it's just phenomenal as far as a blues rock album goes. But again, as a Sabbath album, it's just not very good, and you debate all day whether or not it was supposed to be a Sabbath album or not. I don't think it's relevant. As far as it stands, it has Black Sabbath on the cover, so we're going to talk about it as if it were a Sabbath album.
I think it was.
Merit,
yeah.
This is where I put it.
Yeah. I would say whether you consider it a Sabbath album or not, it's a good album.
All right, so what's next?
Eternal Idol. It's an A rating for me.
A rating for you. For me, it's going to be C.
I don't think I have any albums that I could conceivably give a... No, one.
Where are you putting Eternal Idol? Above Paranoid, below
between
Sabbath,
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Paranoid.
All right, so I'll say my opinion first because it's the more
Yeah.
negative opinion. Okay, so wait, that's the wrong album. All right, so here. The thing with Eternal Idol is that it's better than people give it credit for, but people call it dog shit, and it's only a little bit better than that. Why did I put it there? That is not where I want it. There we go. Okay, I think
No, my
it's
Lord and
just a little
Savior.
better than Technical Ecstasy, but it is
Wow.
far worse than
Wow.
Seventh Star.
Wow. Wow. Hard disagree there, bud.
Like, okay, the problem with this album is Tony Martin. He doesn't fit with the style that they had in this album. That's basically my opinion. And I'm not even saying that
Okay.
the album is bad. I just don't really. I'm backtracking. Let me go ahead and clarify. The album is not bad. It's better than people say it is, so it's not dog shit. Like I said for Technical Ecstasy. And it's actually better than Technical Ecstasy, as I have on my list here. But it's miles and miles worse than Seventh Star, mostly because of Tony Martin. And frankly, also, I hate to say it, but this is probably my least favorite performance from Tony Iommi as well.
Okay, so first of all, the first song is an ode to my favorite movie of all time.
Okay, that's the
Automatic.
best song on the album, though.
Yeah. So, I actually kind of agree with you. And the remedy to that is go on YouTube and listen to the Ray Gillen mix.
Okay, but Ray Gillen's a jackass.
Ray Gillen, yeah, so you kind of so here's the thing. With Tony Martin, you have a better singer, but worse mix. And with Ray Gillen, you have a not quite as good singer. Maybe you might like him, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea. But a much better mix.
I'm
It's
kind of just morally opposed to listening to the Ray Gillen versions for the most part. Because I have hindsight. I know what he did. You know?
I mean, I generally speaking, I like to separate the artist from unless they have done something. Well, not even like I always try to do that. I try to rank an album on its own merits. And I think that the Ray Gillen version, in my opinion, is slightly better. But Tony Martin version, I think Tony Martin is a better singer. But yeah, Shining, really good song. I'm gonna have to look at the track listing again. Ancient Warrior, really good riff. That
That's
is
probably
like
my favorite song.
I actually I actually say that's the best Tony Martin riff. One of the very best Tony Martin riffs of all time.
I'd say it's probably the best.
Hard Life to Love. Glory Ride is not
No.
as good, maybe, but still really good. Born to Lose, pretty good.
I could take or leave
Lost
that one.
Forever, I think, was pretty good. I can't remember if it was
hated that
Lost
one.
Forever or Secret. There was one that was really good and one that was not quite as good.
That's the biggest sin this album commits. It's so unmemorable.
Yeah.
It really is
So,
in every
like,
way.
yeah. But I would still say the really good songs are really good. So, like, again, it's like the first half of the album is a masterpiece. And then, like, the second half of the album is still pretty good, just not top shelf material. So, do you have anything more to say?
No, I'm ready to move on to where I get lynched.
Okay, Headless Cross.
Worst Sabbath album.
Best Sabbath album. No. I would say
I actually think this album is just straight up dog shit.
I would say it is the best Sabbath album that is not in print.
So where would you put it?
Okay, so that's my list.
It's
I
got
would
to be above
say
Eternal Idol.
no.
But you just said it's the best Sabbath album not in print.
Eternal Idol is in print. You can still
Is it?
Yeah, you can still listen to it on Spotify.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I would say above Born Again.
Above Born Again? Okay.
Yes.
Is it in B or is it in A?
Oh, B.
Okay.
So it's a similar case with Eternal Idol, just not quite as strong. It has a few really good songs and a few kind of not quite as memorable songs. Like Headless Cross, title track, fantastic. When Death Calls, best Tony Martin song ever.
No. The Shining and Ancient Warrior are way better in my book.
Look, my bias towards the movie and the book notwithstanding, When Death Calls is really heavy. I think you need to give this album another chance because, like,
I did.
I think it's more doomy than anything else post Dio.
Except for when Dio came back, anyway.
Well, I'm saying, like, yeah, good point. But like, Devil and Daughter is really good.
You want to know?
They're not really good, but pretty good. And then the rest is like okay, but not something I would really want to listen to again.
So, if you've been paying attention, you've noticed a pattern. Some of these albums I used to hate a lot, but I grew to love them based on their own merits. With Headless Cross, I didn't listen to it because it was out of print. Eventually, it was... Wasn't it during... Yeah, it was during when we were listening to the entire discography of Sabbath that I finally got to listening to this album. And I was bored to tears. Like, it was just so boring. I wanted to do anything other than listen to this album. I hated Tony Martin's vocals. I could not even, like, understand how Tony Iommi could be the guitarist on this record because...
Come on, Headless Cross with, like, the really cool falsetto, though?
No.
And the Headless Cross!
Like, it sucks, though. It sounds like Motley Crue.
You sound like Motley Crue. You're just wrong, okay? You're just wrong. Like,
This album is just straight garbage. And don't give me this, you should give it another try. I've given it 5 tries.
Okay, we'll give it a 6. 6 times the charm. You
really wanted to like this album because everyone goes on about how it's better than Eternal Idol by miles, but I just don't see it. It's, in my opinion, the only album Sabbath ever made that should just stay out of print forever.
Really?
Yeah, I legitimately believe it's so bad that people should just forget it exists.
Anyway.
Even Forbidden is better, and we'll get to that. I would rather listen to Ice-T rap on a Black Sabbath song than 1 second of Headless Cross.
I mean, I'd rather listen to Body Count than either of those albums, but still.
Yeah.
So, like, I think both of our opinions are clear. You're just wrong.
I hate it.
You're just wrong, and that's okay. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. But anyway,
well, I'll be happy being wrong then, and not having to listen to that
album. Tier. I was thinking about that while he was going on his tirade.
Are we doing tier now?
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready to like have the lynching part 2? Okay, tier's actually going higher than Sabotage. Yes, I'm saying tier is better than basically every Ozzy Sabbath album. Oh wait, this is getting fucked up a little bit. It goes above
What did
Sabotage,
you do?
But
I think this is my list.
Oh yeah, you're right. This is your list. Whoops. So that's why it's all fucked.
Yeah.
There we go. Tier.
Yeah, so put it above
Sabotage.
Yeah.
No, wait, I want this in S rank. Okay, wait,
really?
How did I fuck up your list? Okay, no, your list is fine. Okay, let me go first because I want to sing the praises of this album before you shit on it. Okay, guys, listen. Tear is the most underrated Sabbath album. Nobody gives it a chance. Nobody. They're like, oh, it's Sabbath power metal. Shut the fuck up. If you want to talk about Headless Cross being doomy, Tear is fucking doomy as hell. The riffs are fucking amazing. They're right up there with Volume 4 as far as how good the riffs are. The songs are badass. Yes, they're about Norse mythology. Who cares?
I mean, Zeppelin accomplished it.
People get so fed up about the whole Norse theme. Like, is it really that big of a deal that the songs are about Norse mythology? Like, if Volume 4 was about Norse mythology, would you call it dog shit just because it's about Norse mythology? Could you just get off that? It pisses me off. Nobody gives this album a fair chance because it's about Norse mythology.
So I gave it a fair chance, and
You didn't like it, but I can at least give you credit for giving it a fair chance.
I think it is the first album to get a C rating. Here's the thing. It just commits the unpardonable sin of being boring. Now, to be fair, the majority of the album I spent listening like while I was in an Uber ride going to my girlfriend's house.
I think you should give it another try.
Maybe I should. And to be fair, there's like good stuff on this album, even though I can't necessarily remember the names and the titles. But I really just don't have much to say about it because I don't remember this album even existing.
I just love every second of it. Like, okay, so a little bit of backstory. I actually found this album's existence through YouTube. I got randomly recommended one of the songs, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And then I got further into it and realized it's a Sabbath album that nobody ever told me about because, like I said, people don't give it a fair chance. So I listened to it, and it blew me away. And to this day, it's one of my most played Sabbath. In fact, I could probably go as far as to saying that I listen to this album more than any other Sabbath album. Like, when I want to hear some Sabbath, I'll either put on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Masters of Reality, or Tear. And most of the time, it's Tear. Just being honest. I've heard the other albums a shit ton, so...
Right. So, like I said, I have nothing really to say about that album. It's just... It's not even bad. It's just... When did I listen to this? I don't remember listening to it at all.
And see, this is the thing. Like, I always try to give albums a fair shake. I'll listen to it multiple times, 2, 3, 4 times, before I just straight up write it off.
That's a fair point.
I encourage everyone to do the same thing.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I've only listened to the album once, I think, all the way through. So maybe my opinion is not technically valid, and it could go up, it could go down. But,
all right, well,
yeah.
I say we just move on then if we have nothing else to say about it. So now we're on Forbidden, right?
No, we're on Dehumanizer.
Oh, really? Dio's back? What about Forbidden?
Yep. No, Forbidden was the last one.
Really? I could have
sworn that was the last one with Tony Martin.
Right. But didn't Tony Martin... I don't know. Either way.
Yeah.
My Sabbath history gets a little muddy once we get past this point.
It's all a bunch of Aaron Osborne drama. So
pretty much.
So Dehumanizer. This is going to be tough for me. So why don't you give your opinion on it first?
I think it's better than the debut album, but I wouldn't put it in A tier. Now, the main reason for that is there's a few songs on this album that are just terrible. For instance, is a really bad song. What was the other one? Father or something like that?
I think it was something like that. It was like the latter half of the album just isn't that great.
I just think it's those two songs. If those two songs were off the album, this would be up in S tier. But since they're there, they're always a slog to get through, and I'd rather just skip them. Whereas, Sabotage, its highs are really high. and that makes up for its lows.
Yeah.
Dehumanizer's highs are high, but they're not quite as high, and its lows are lower, which is why I'm putting it below Sabotage.
Okay. Can I see my list again real quick?
Yeah. If that makes sense.
Maybe above 7th star.
See, we both kind of say it's like a middle of the road Sabbath album.
I'm not going to say it's middle of the road. It's a good album.
That's pretty much exactly where you put it, though.
Yeah. Well, it's a good album, but like it's not. It's far from perfect. Like Computer God,
Yeah.
great song.
Uh-huh.
After all, you can go on a 5-minute rant about how After All has finally changed your opinion on this album, because he used to crap on it for years.
Yeah. Like I said, patterns. I used to hate a lot of Sabbath albums.
Yeah.
I used to be, you know what it is? I used to be an Ozzy purist. I used to think everything after Volume 4 was shit, and I honestly didn't even really like Volume 4 very much. So,
TV Crimes, actually maybe one of my favorite, arguably one of my favorite Dio Sabbath songs.
What's the closer called?
The closer, Buried
like
Alive. I don't think that was very good either.
No, not that one. I mean, it's great, but what about the second half, the starter one of the second half?
I don't know, like Sins of Our Father?
No. Fuck, what is the song I'm thinking of? It's like Master of something.
Oh, Master of Insanity. That's a good song.
That song. That is my favorite song on the album, hands down.
Yeah. After All, TV Crimes. Letters from Earth is a good song. Master of Insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Time Machine. I mean, it's in Wayne's World. Of course it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything after that, I don't really like. Sins of Our Fathers, Too Late. I was just terrible.
Sins of Our Father is terrible. I is terrible.
Buried Alive, I don't remember listening to.
It's
Sins
good.
of Our Fathers,
It's
I don't
really
really remember listening to.
Sins of Our Father is not as bad as I, but it's still just a slog compared to the rest of the album. But that's why I kind of make it middle of the road. I would say that it's heavier than the debut of Black Sabbath, and that's why I kind of like it more, but the lows are a lot lower. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much. Now, Cross Purposes, I literally do not remember a single thing from that album.
Cross Purposes. Okay, so the thing with this album is that this guy fucking listened to the album and was like, "Oh, it's so good, dude. Why do people hate this album?" And then he just forgot everything about it like 10 minutes later. I'm not even joking. Yeah, he was ranting about how good certain tracks were, and then like 10 minutes later, I listened to them. He's like, "What? Did I say that? Did I like that? What?" It was hilarious.
I guess I'm gonna have to put it. I'm gonna have to put it in the same tier as Tier. I don't know whether I guess put it above Tier because apparently I liked it at some point. I don't remember this album existing at all. I have nothing to say about it. I need to give it another chance.
Yeah, this album is just, it's so forgettable. It really is. It's not bad. It's just forgettable. That's its biggest sin. And that's why Technical Ecstasy and Eternal Idol are above it, because they're not forgettable.
Yeah.
At least most of it isn't.
Yeah.
So what are we on to now?
Forbidden. Worst album for me.
Worst album for you?
Yes.
I actually think that Forbidden has some really good Iommi riffs, especially the first song.
I don't think there is a single redeeming quality for Forbidden. It's not bad, and it's not even funny.
It's not even a little funny when Ice-T starts rapping to a Sabbath riff. That's a little funny.
No, it's just sad because Ice-T has actual talent. Like, again, have you ever listened, like, well, you've listened to Body Count, but, like, I'm asking the people watching. Have you ever listened to Body Count? That is, like, straight up talent right there. Like, he has a lot of talent. Body Count, not only the debut album, but I'm sure the rest of the discography. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure it's talented. Forbidden is just sad. It's sad because it was very nearly the note that Black Sabbath went out on and it basically was for over a decade. It's sad because Ice-T, which is actual talent, went to waste, and it's sad because anything else that was talented, like Tony Martin, Tony Iommi, anybody else who was still in the band at that point, that was talent went to waste too. So it's just a sad album. It honestly, like while I was listening to it, it was depressing. It was depressingly bad.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you, but I do think that the riffs are pretty good.
No, I can't give it. I can't say anything nice about that album.
That's the only thing I put over Headless Cross.
The only thing that is nice about that album is that it is no longer the note that Sabbath went out on.
All right, well, we only have 2 albums left to go, and
oh no,
we're on to the one that you hate.
Again, it's the unpardonable sin of being boring. It is D-Class, but like, wait, what did I say is the best of the worst?
Technical Ecstasy.
I don't know if it should go. I guess it'll go above Technical Ecstasy because there's like legitimately good. No, it'll go below Technical Ecstasy because I can think of like maybe one good song on the album.
Come on, Eating the Cannibals, Follow the Tears.
Follow the Tears is the only one. Eating the Cannibals, I guess, is all
Adam
right.
and Evil.
Adam and Evil sucked.
No.
It sucked. It sucked. Whereas like Technical Ecstasy, like it had maybe not as good quality of good songs, but it had more good songs.
So for me, I basically view Heaven and Hell, the Devil You Know, as everything Dehumanizer was, but better. It is everything Dehumanizer was, but refined, polished, and without the shitty parts.
It commits the unpardonable sin of being boring. And unlike Tear, I've actually tried to listen to it. I've listened to it like 4 or 5 times, and I do not understand the appeal that people have with it. Oh, it's doom metal. It's them going back to the doom metal roots. Okay, so is 13, and it does everything that Heaven and Hell. What was the official name of the album?
The Devil You Know.
Yeah, it does everything that the Devil You Know did, but way, way better. Better production, and that's coming from a guy who hates Rick Rubin. Better production.
I guess we're just moving right on to 13. Where do you want 13 at?
Hold on, I have to rant more about Devil You Know. I guess 13.
We'll just talk about the 2 together.
Yeah. All right. So Heaven and Hell. There's Follow the Tears is okay. Eating the Cannibals is okay. Everything else is not memorable. Even those songs are barely memorable. I had to listen to it like 5 times.
Come on, Fear.
That song sucked.
That song is amazing.
Every song on that album is... I don't... You know
One
what?
of these days when at our practices, I'm just going to start playing a fucking Devil You Know song, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? That riff is amazing. I'll be like, yeah, it's from the Devil You Know.
Look, there's...
I'll record it.
Look. Devil You Know, it has a fan base, and
yeah,
I can't say don't listen to the album because there's definitely something to the album that I'm missing. There might be something to the album that I'm missing, but I do not like that album at all. It's probably my least favorite Sabbath album just because of how everybody worships it. But if we take all of that aside, it is just below Technical Ecstasy.
Yeah,
Um,
for me, I would say it's above Dehumanizer for the reasons I said earlier. But beyond that, I think it's. I don't want to say the heaviest Sabbath album because I gave that to Masters of Reality, but it's definitely below Masters of Reality as far as heaviness is going.
um, all right.
And that's to the album's benefit. What they
It's
did is
just
they committed to that idea and they perfected it in my mind. And in with 13, I think they went backwards. I'm actually going to put 13 below the debut album in B because 13 is basically The Devil You Know, but with Ozzy, and I don't think it works as well because Ozzy doesn't sound as good. Iommi's
I
riffs
think he
aren't
sounds
as
better.
good. Bill Ward isn't on the drums, which kind of sucks. The drumming in Sabbath has always been kind of meh since Bill Ward left, but it's especially meh on this album. I mean, all respect to the drummer of Rage Against the Machine. He is amazing on Rage Against the Machine albums, whatever his name is. But on this album, and the bass work, sorry, geezer, it's just not up to snuff. You sounded way better on every other Ozzy Sabbath album. Yes, even the bad ones, even Never Say Die. You sounded better on Never Say Die than you did on 13. I think 13 is just an over-glorified fan letter because Sabbath did not want to end on Forbidden. They wanted to make one last hurrah, one last album, one last tour. And I can't fault them for that, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's a masterpiece. It's an album you should only listen to if you're a diehard fan.
So I have a very complicated relationship with 13. Um, so it is the first album I ever bought with my own money, and also the first album I ever bought on release day. I bought it the day that it came out. I probably could have pre-ordered it, but I don't know. Maybe my mentality is that it would have like cost more if you pre-order. I don't know. I was like 12 years old. Um, anyway, but I bought it on release day. I listened to it. I liked it. I don't know if I can't remember if I liked it more than like the songs or the albums that I'd heard previously because I didn't really listen to music by the album at that point. I had like a greatest hits of Sabbath on vinyl at the time. And like, I'd obviously heard like Paranoid. I've obviously heard like Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, all the hits. But and like I definitely didn't regret my purchase. And I still don't. But it has always been a polarizing album. It always had a special place in my heart, basically, because it was the first album that I bought. But like I've always like heard people say like, "Oh, it's bad. It's such a bad note to end on," and I kind of believed the hype for a while, and then when we did the marathon for the 50th anniversary of Black Sabbath, I listened to it again because I wanted to, because I don't think I'd actually really listened to that album since I was in high school or maybe even since I was a teenager. Um, so like it's really hard. It's definitely better than Heaven and Hell, or it's definitely better than The Devil You Know, rather. Um, it's I would say it is in bet. I would say it is in between Dehumanizer and The Seventh Star because it has some really good songs. It's basically everything that The Devil You Know was done right. I think Ozzy sounds better. I mean, like, I guess you can't really blame the vocal performance because Dio was like a year away from death at that point. So his health obviously wasn't the best. And he was getting older. So, well, he wasn't really that old. He died, unfortunately, very young. But I guess you could say he died young. Okay, no. I'm sorry.
Oh!
I'm so sorry, everyone. But
I wish him
like,
well.
yeah, me too. But
Because there's a
like,
song called Wishing Well, dude.
End of the Beginning is a really good song. I mean, it was the first song for the first purchase that I ever made on an album. I kind of have to like it. God is Dead is a really good song. I always thought it was I always kind of like thought it was like an ode to skepticism, but then I listened to it again. I'm like, that's clearly not what it is.
Yeah.
Loner, and then like the criticisms of this album are 100% true. Is it fan fiction? Definitely. Does it have its own identity? Absolutely not. Is it just ripping off better Sabbath songs? Absolutely. But at least it's ripping off something good. Like Loner is good. Age of Reason is really good. Um
The bonus tracks on this album is
yeah.
really phenomenal.
Yeah, I bought the Methodemic is really good. I bought the deluxe edition
Mhm.
back in the day.
Methodemic is great.
Yeah, Methodemic is really good. But it has some really good songs. I don't know if it's the best. It's not the best Sabbath album ever made, but I would say even if you're a casual Sabbath fan, give it a listen, and I don't think you'll regret it.
All right, so we have our lists. I'm
Yeah,
going to run through mine and just like reiterate all of my opinions
that's
and then
mine.
we'll do the same real quick
Yeah.
and then we'll end it. So for me, the worst Sabbath album is Headless Cross. I found it just very boring and I hated the riffs and the vocals and it sounded like hair metal and it was just meh. Forbidden is pretty much everything wrong with Headless Cross, but with decent riffs. So Born Again was just bipolar. The vocals didn't sound like they belonged with the instrumentals, and the mix ruined the instrumentals. So even though the instrumentals were good, didn't really save the album for me. Never Say Die was just an album that was phoned in by all parties, and it shows. Cross Purposes, was that a Sabbath album again? Technical Ecstasy. It's it's not as bad as people say. Eternal Idol. Not eternal, but it's a little better than Technical Ecstasy. So,
It's better than two. It's better than two robots fucking.
there you go. Seventh Star, a great blues album, not a great Sabbath album. And if it were up to me, I probably wouldn't even put it on the list. But since it does have Black Sabbath on the name, that's where I'd put it. 13, kind of a step back from the previous album in my mind. It's just Ozzy Sabbath fan fiction and meh. Debut album, classic. Obviously, a pioneer of heavy metal. It's one of the biggest reasons why metal exists in the first place. But there's some stuff about it that just doesn't click with me. Dehumanizer, amazing album, very heavy, but there's two songs on it that are just kind of slogs. The Devil You Know, borderline, the first album I would say that's borderline perfect. Dio's vocals are amazing, the riffs are awesome. It's a dark, doomy album. It definitely has some of the darkest and doomiest riffs that Iommi ever crafted. Amazing album. Sabotage is pretty much prog Sabbath, and I don't know how much it works, but the highs are so high with this album that it's just, you gotta love it. Tear, underrated as hell, amazing album. Volume 4, I mean, I'm just gonna keep repeating myself at this point. Amazing album, awesome riffs, dark, heavy. Same thing with Paranoid. Heaven and Hell was the first speed metal Sabbath album with Dio, and you can tell they're still kind of like sloshed between Doom Sabbath and Speed Metal Sabbath, but it works. Mob Rules is the perfection of that style. Master of Reality is one of the heaviest albums ever made, definitely the heaviest Sabbath album. And finally, my baby, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which is the closest album on this list that I would say is perfect, the closest to perfection. It does have flaws, just like every album on this list. Mainly looking at you, Fluff. But as a whole, it's much better than pretty much anything below it, except maybe Masters of Reality. So that's my list, Logan.
Right. So, Forbidden, there's nothing good I can say about that album. It just fails in every. You know what? I think if this album could smell bad, it would.
It
I think
smelled
if
like
it's
jocked BO.
like, if it could taste bad, it would taste like a Nintendo Switch cartridge.
It would taste like Scrabble.
Exactly. It would taste like you look. Never Say Die, bad, but at least it's funny. Heaven and Hell, just boring, honestly. It's boring and it's overrated and it's just personally my worst favorite album of all time. But if I'm looking at it semi-objectively, it's at least better than, it's at least not as bad, or it's at least worse than Technical Ecstasy. Technical Ecstasy, I mean, it has some good songs. It has a whole bunch of bad ones. It's the best of the worst. Tear, Cross Purposes. Now, Seventh Star is a good album. You know, whether you call it a Sabbath album or not, it has some really good songs on it. Black Sabbath, 13, it's always going to hold a place in my heart. It has some really good songs. Is it fanficky? Yeah, but again, at least it's ripping off something good. Dehumanizer, also a pretty good album. A lot of good songs, some less than stellar songs. It's overall above average. Black Sabbath, I honestly don't even know if I think this is like the first really good album. Black Sabbath is, you know, even if they didn't find their footing, I can't really think of a bad song on the album except Evil Woman, if you count that. Born Again, best Black Sabbath album of all time. Anybody who disagrees should be burned at the stake. Also, praise the Lord Demon Baby. No, 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 not really, not really. Yeah, but still, praise our Lord and Savior, Lord Demon Baby. Headless Cross is a really good album. I probably need to listen to that one again too, because
it's
like
the
I know
boring slog.
I probably need to listen to that one too, because I know there's more good songs on it than I remember. I just can't remember them.
They suck. Don't do it.
Paranoid, I mean, it's hard to take the fact that it's overplayed against it, but I'm gonna have to. I mean, like it that's the only problem with it, and also Planet Caravan. But even Planet Caravan, I guess, is better than Solitude. The Eternal Idol, come on, it has The Shining. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, really good apart from some flaws and also a shit guitar tone. Masters of Reality, I can agree that it is the heaviest Sabbath song, or the heaviest Sabbath album of all time. Die, Solitude. Alexa, stop. Heaven and Hell, almost perfect. Just like the last few songs I didn't really care for, and also Heaven and Hell I think is a tiny bit overrated, but that's just my personal opinion. Well, I shouldn't even say it's overrated. It's a good song, it's just not really my thing. Sabotage, borderline perfect. In fact, I would say perfect. Just maybe not it doesn't have as high of highs as Sabbath Volume 4. Just Mob Rules. Just why haven't you listened to that album? Just
It was in
I
heavy
could
metal, dude.
yeah. Okay, well, I don't care what you listen to. You are listening to that album. Everybody watching tonight, listen to Mob Rules. I don't care if you listen to, metal, rock, country, disco, polka.
Polka.
Mob Rules,
If you listen to
baby.
Justin Bieber, don't fucking listen. Don't fucking listen to this album. Don't do it.
Don't listen to him. You know what? It'll make. You know what? That Ronnie James Dio
No.
is toad streamy.
No, we need to keep the Bieber fans away from our Sabbath. Okay.
This album is 10 out of 10 yummy. All right.
We don't need Cut for Ozzy.
Cut for Dio. I mean, Dio's already dead, so we don't really. I don't think we need to really worry about that. Anyway, so bye.
Bye, bitch.